What's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we're going to be taking a look over here at the Bitcoin price chart, along with the altcoin market, which just seems to be humming along. And outside of price action of what's going on right now, it still seems like we're just in a sideways accumulation range happening here for Bitcoin, along with the altcoin market in here. And so prices could still just waddle around in here for a little while throughout the weekend. But there's something very fascinating that has happened here in the market that I'd like to talk about. And I talked about this yesterday in Markets in the Morning, that even if we moved at the same rate or this behavior, it seemed like there would likely be another dip if we acted like that. And that, we'd still have another dip to come to set another low down in here for the altcoin market. But I phrased the question of, what do you think will happen at that exact moment of when that occurs? And what is the repetitive theme that we keep seeing? We keep seeing negative news show up at lows. And the consistent reoccurring theme is it seems to have to do with government agencies, or it has to do with governments in general, of either some type of actions or some type of enforcement actions. And what do you know, even after Markets in the Morning yesterday when we talked about that, hey, the SEC and Consensys and Ethereum all make their big appearance, which you had to be kind of living under a rock on Twitter yesterday if you didn't notice that. All the crypto places are portraying it as Consensys sues the SEC over unlawful seizure of authority over Ethereum, as Consensys sues the SEC trying to get regulatory clarity for Ethereum, which seems to me kind of like a spin, kind of like a going on the attack, because the hard reality is Consensys said in the filing that they received a Wells notice from the SEC on April 10th, warning of potential enforcement actions related to its MetaMask swaps and MetaMask staking products. In other words, on April 10th, the SEC notified Consensys that they intended to sue Consensys. So the narrative being spun is Consensys sues the SEC. Consensys has gone on the attack, but the reality is they were sent a Wells notice with the intent to get sued by the SEC. Now, what is so fascinating about that? That is April 10th right there. That is 2 days before the big plunge happens over here in crypto. Do you remember what happened when Ripple got issued a Wells notice from the SEC back in 2020? I sure do. That happened. The announcement that Ripple had been given a Wells notice by the SEC came out on December 21st. However, they likely received it somewhere here in these days prior. But the infamous tweet from Brad Garlinghouse took place there on December 21st, saying today the SEC voted to attack crypto. However, that likely came in a little bit earlier with the Wells notice and a little bit of time, surprisingly or not, just like what we experienced right now in crypto. And so right now, it's coming as a big surprise to most retail investors and to the general public. Oh boy, there's some stuff going on out there. But the reality is all the insiders, all the people in the know, they all found out back here. They all found out before that plunge happened, likely with what happened with XRP and Ripple back in 2020. And so us finding out right now is like finding out right in here after we've already had liquidation 1, liquidation 2, recovery pullback, liquidation 1, liquidation 2, recovery pullback. What's even crazier about it all, or not, the Ripple announcement happens shortly after Bitcoin is above the all-time high over here in 2020. Now, the Consensys one happens over here just above the all-time high here in 2024. The SEC playing their timing games. However, I think the difference with this one is that all the insiders got to find out about it ahead of time before the rest of us did here in 2024. Whereas in 2020, it came out a little bit quicker. But the result ended up being the same thing. So right now, trying to be like, oh boy, this is new news hitting the market. Hard to disseminate that as actually being new news, because you can clearly see 2 days after they were given the Wells notice, you're telling me that all the insiders didn't find out about it right away? Nah, I doubt it. Now they've had 2 weeks to kind of spin up a marketing campaign and make it look like, oh, we're on the attack, we're suing the SEC. But the reality is they got served a Wells notice. So trying to disseminate this as new information, I'm ahead of the curve, I'm making decisions based on this information, I think it's hard to do that just because we're already past that. And we had just gotten started there with XRP back in 2020. So to each their own. I obviously don't know the end result of what this is going to end up being, but I can draw these similarities of what actually ended up happening. It became information pretty quickly here. We've talked about negative news hitting here, right? We've only heard one side of it. So we still haven't heard the other side of it. Like the expectation is that we end up having some negative news that comes in that dip. So we talked about yesterday in Markets in the Morning, what ends up happening in here when you get these last pushes is we have some type of negative news that happens. And the historical thing we continue to keep seeing is government agencies being the ones to do it. So we have this happening right here, but we only have this one side of it. Well, going through Ripple, going through the whole XRP thing, I know there's still one part of the puzzle that hasn't happened yet with this story that maybe we end up getting today is the part where the SEC comes out and makes their statement about it, right? We know that Consensys has received their Wells notice, but we haven't seen the SEC formally come out and say, here's what we're doing, and here's all the reasons why, and with their formal complaint, right? So we got a formal complaint there from the SEC back in 2020, and we haven't gotten that yet, right? And so this thing was like 71 pages. That part still hasn't come out yet. And that's the part that's likely going to spook the market. And we don't know what it's going to say inside of that thing. But what's interesting is that we've really already done a lot of the price action of what we've actually seen happen in these types of circumstances already before. So negative news in the dip. Negative news in the dip. Seems like it. Who's going to be the culprit? The SEC, the typical one. We'll have to see what happens when it comes out. But my gut feeling tells me it's actually already been priced in. That gut feeling would change very drastically, very quickly, if we actually go take out the lows that were set back there on April 19th. So really just a week ago. But right now, we're actually behaving really technically normal. So long as we continue to behave technically normal. And well, we've already done all the stuff that we've seen happen in these types of environments before. I'm curious if we're actually just getting played here. And that the true Wells notice sell-off took place 2 days after they received it. So keep your eyes out for it. Be prepared for it. The story right now is Consensys sues the SEC for clarity over Ethereum. But the reality is there's likely a formal complaint coming from the SEC here pretty soon. Otherwise, as we get ready to head into the weekend, the technical structure of the market has not changed. Things are still just humming along, with the market still acting technically as it should for a recovery. Again, the things that change that should be if we go set new lows below April 19th, and it wouldn't be surprising if there's still a couple more flushes to happen here in this area, especially if that formal complaint comes out. But technically speaking, absolutely nothing is broken in here from this structure at this point right now. So keep your eyes on it throughout the weekend. Looking for some bottoming structures to start showing up in here as this pullback is in place. So long as we're holding those April 19th lows, personally, I will likely be buying into that. Not financial advice, do whatever the heck you want. But if this market's going to turn up, this seems like a pretty good place to do it. In the event that it does take out the April 19th lows, I will cut those buys and then wait for better entries. But as of right now, it looks pretty good. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. I want to thank you so much for watching me and for supporting me and being here. I'm grateful that you watched the channel. If you're looking for something to do throughout the weekend, of course, check out the newsletter over here on blockchainbacker.substack.com. There's a link down there in the description of this video. There's over 30 newsletters in here. If you sign up for the newsletter, you get access to all of them. They all come with audio recordings in here that I do record personally. But this most recent one that was just recently put out really talks about that dynamic shift that's happening over here in the market with contract deployment and user activity levels and activity over there on the base chain, and how Coinbase is really feeding their customers through this avenue. There's been a massive explosion over there in total value locked, NFT trading activity, decentralized finance, and it seems like it's important to be ahead of the curve on this and just keeping your eye on it. You can check all that out over here, plus all the other ones that talk about development activity and the importance and the contrast of performance of the top 20 in the market cap versus the top 20 by development activity. All of those are still on here available for you. Of course, you can check out bcbacker.com if you prefer videos, where there's over 40 videos and 11 hours of content where I talk about the historical behavior of the cryptocurrency market and teach you how to set up your own charts and your own indicators in TradingView and CoinTrader Pro. Again, those links are right down there in the description of this video to the Substack right there at blockchainbacker.substack.com and bcbacker.com. Otherwise, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor, But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.